Okay. All right. We're up in 5, 4. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. Let's get it going every day. I'm always trying to figure out not what I'm going to talk about, but which story are we going to go to? There is so much that is going on as we speak. Everyone is up in arms about the stock market. More than 60% of Americans are involved in the stock market in some kind of way. So that means 2 out of 3 of us have exposure, almost. Mm-hmm. And so we need to pay attention to that. But Wall Street and Main Street, on Main Street, on your street, people have been feeling the pain. So we're going to continue to look at that story. But there's some other stories that we don't want to escape your attention, because they are of tremendous consequence. In the next hour, we're going to be talking about the North Carolina Supreme Court decision. The courts are on track to throw out 65,000 votes that could tilt the Supreme Court of the state of North Carolina in the direction of progressivism. Let's just put it that way. But right now, we're also watching something in Texas. I don't know what is going on in Texas. Attorney Terry O'Neill, President Emeritus of the National Organization of Women. But so let's go to Texas Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, formerly State Senator Rodney Ellis. But I understand more and more. The more I understand government, the better I understand his pivot from state government to county government. Indeed, the most powerful figure really in Illinois politics, is one of your colleagues, Tony Preckwinkle, the president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. Indeed, our Cook County Board gives Chicago their budget. She is really the political godmother of our mayor. It's an enormously powerful position. And so now I think your governor is really going after your county, Harris County, which is where this seat is vacant. And he is saying, I guess you all are incapable of having accurate elections. I don't know why he's holding back on a special election. Unlike the U.S. Senate, when there is a vacancy, when a senator passes or resigns, there's an appointment. In the U.S. House of Representatives, by law, you must have a special election. It is the People's House. And so Sheila Jackson Lee passed away in July. We were praying that she would hold on, but she had been holding on for a long time. She'd been battling cancer for a while. And so her daughter then filled her seat. And then there was a special election. And the former mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner, won the seat handily. Brilliant, and wonderful public servant. And then he passes away the night of the State of the Union, just hours after. I was just shocked. No one could believe it. Just after he and Congressman Cleo Fields and Congressman Jonathan Jackson had come together to found the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Caucus. He's gone. Now, that's been more than a month. Typically, they hold these elections like that. For some reason, the governor has decided to say, no, we're not going to do that, which creates an even greater imbalance in the U.S. House of Representatives. So, Commissioner Rodney Ellis, you understand politics better than just about anybody I know. On the federal, because I met you when you were with Congressman Mickey Leland. So on the federal, state, county, and local levels, you really are the eminent man in our politics in the United States. So help me to understand what is going on in Texas. What is going on with the governor?
Santita, thank you for inviting me, and it's always good to be with you. And of course, Terry O'Neill, I know of your work and just so proud of what you have done over the years and are continuing to do. Look, the short answer is Governor Abbott is being the lapdog to Donald Trump. That's what it amounts to. It's such a razor-thin margin that decides who controls the United States Congress. And so what he's doing is simply holding off on having an election because he's bowing down to Donald Trump. They want to do everything they can to try and hold their majority. And the crazier the policies are that come out of Washington, he's afraid that at some point, the president, he's afraid that at some point, some of those Republican members of Congress in the House are going to wake up, as is the case with a few in the Senate on a few issues, on these tariffs, where they're standing up, and he's afraid of losing votes. So that's what it amounts to. And I would say on the issue of Harris County, we are the third largest county in the country, only because Cook County might be doing some creative counting over there.
Oh,
So
you know what I do.
Cook County might have about, they may have a couple 100,000 people more than us, so they're about 5.1. We 4.9 or 5 million people, but it's about the same. So these are big counties, whether it's Cook or Harris or LA. Los Angeles is the grand person of them all, 10 million people in Los Angeles County. And then Cook County, obviously, slightly more than Harris County. But you take an example, Cook and Harris are larger than 25 states. So more people in Cook County and in Harris County individually than you have in the whole state. When I think of it from a Texas perspective, more people in my county, Harris County, than in every surrounding state. More people here than in New Mexico, than in Oklahoma, than in Louisiana, than in Arkansas. So it's a big county. So is your county, Cook County. In terms of Texas, we have 31 members of the state Senate. Those seats are about 900,000 people, maybe a million. If we got 30 million people in the state, 900,000 people per Senate seat. The congressional district now is about 800,000 people. We're losing so much by not filling that congressional seat. You can't get any, they don't call them earmarks anymore. They're community projects. So flooding is a big issue in Harris County. So our flood control director had certain projects that would benefit my precinct and the 18th congressional district where they were asking for community projects. They're going to pull them back because they won't recognize any community projects if you don't have a member of Congress. All of this hoopla about elections here. You may remember a young guy who is the city controller now was running for mayor until Congresswoman Jackson Lee got in the race, and then he pivoted to run for city control, Chris Hollins. We appointed him the county clerk, handling elections for us in Harris County. He did the 24-hour voting, the drive-through voting. He did everything under the law to try and make it as easy for people to vote as it was to go to the grocery store during a pandemic. And we used federal money to do it. We gave him unprecedented money because we believe in the fundamental constitutional right to vote. So what did they do? They went back and changed the law in Texas. You can only have one drop box in a county of 5 million people. One place you can go drop off your ballot. Yeah,
one
that's what they
drop
passed
box for the county.
Yeah, no more 24-hour voting. You know, we couldn't, for years, I would send out voter registration application along with a letter congratulating people coming out of high school. Barbara Jordan sent me one when I came out of high school, 1972. I did it as a city council member. I did it in the state senate. Now I can no longer, in Texas, send out an application so people can apply to vote. That's Texas. Voter suppression.
But isn't it the law that you're supposed to register high school seniors? Isn't that the law?
It is, and they just ignore it. That's the law that was put on the books probably in, I think, Paul Ragsdale. Remember that name? God bless his soul. State rep out of Dallas. Got that on the books in, maybe got it on the books in the 70s, late 70s. They just ignore it. But so Texas put all these restrictions on in the legislature because the Voting Rights Act has been gutted by the courts, as Terry knows. So you can make it onerous, hard for people to vote. So then they would criticize us in Harris County because they put these burdensome rules on us, and all these people showing up to vote made us get rid of having an elections administrator, go back to a clerk. Fine. We divide voter registration between the tax assessor and the clerk. And the reason it was divided in Texas was when you had a poll tax, some yahoo, some dumbass yahoo came up with the idea, well, if you got to pay your poll tax, why don't we just let you handle voter registration out of the tax assessor's office? That's where you have to pay your poll tax. That's why they divided it. I mean, why would you have one office handling the elections, the clerk, another office, the tax assessor, handling registration? It's nuts. But that was Texas. And so I think the governor was just squirming. I think some thin skin because pressure was being put on him. Leader Jeffries posted a comment, and it looked kind of awkward. You come into former mayor, Congressman Sylvester Turner's life celebration. You go to his funeral. His body's lying in state. You go pay respects at the Capitol. He didn't come to the funeral, but went to pay respects at the Capitol when his body was lying in state. Tremendous honor to let his remains lie in the chamber of the Texas House of Representatives. The governor goes in, meets with the family privately, but then you won't call an election. It's all about trying to hold on to that slim majority, and in the unlikely event, but we're prayerful people. Some Republicans will wake up and decide, if not because it's the right thing to do out of their self-interest, to stop voting for some of this foolishness. So that's why the governor of Texas will not call that election. And we put as much pressure as we can on. Members of the legislature, Senator West was calling me a second ago as I was trying to get on this call because somebody's up, former district attorney that we defeated because she was nuts and beat her. So she's auditioning to be U.S. attorney. Kim Ogg, one of the worst human beings you can think of. And so she needs to go up and act like she knew evidence of voter fraud. Why in the hell didn't she do something about it? Why didn't she prosecute somebody?
Right.
Because there was no voter fraud. The fraud was her sitting in that office, acting like she was following the law. But, no, we're in for tough times. And I just hope people will pay attention. I'm going to have a resolution on the agenda. My successor in the Senate, great state Senator Boris Miles, called me and said, hey, I've done everything I can think of here at the state capitol as a state senator. What else can you think of as a former state senator? I said, just try to make noise, good trouble. Let's do a press conference later on this week. You can dial in from the Senate floor and testify. When I do my resolution, hopefully folks at City Hall would do it. Just try to shame them and make sure the nation knows that this kind of foolishness is going on with the right for people to have representation, because we're taxed in the people's house. Treat it like it's the people's house, not like it's somebody's play toy. But anyway,
Because they're having votes. And
in Congress.
And there's no reason for you not to have a representative. And Leader Jeffries has spoken about filing a lawsuit. Upon what basis would he file a lawsuit? To whom? How would that work?
Terry is a better judge than me. I assume you could try to make a equal protection argument.
Okay.
You violate the equal protection clause. I think you can make the argument about voter suppression. Terry, you hop in. I have a law degree, but you might.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's voter suppression. It's some of the gerrymandering, and I'm not an expert at all, but the gerrymandering cases look at when you create a district, it's certainly a violation of the Voting Rights Act. I call it a form of voter suppression. If you create a district such that it is impossible for marginalized communities to have a voice in whatever legislative body the district is supposed to represent. So if that's true in a gerrymandering or a redistricting context, then simply refusing to hold an election to fill a district seat would surely, by the same logic, be massive voter suppression. People are not even allowed to choose their representative to go and represent them in Congress. But I also think this is Greg Abbott groveling to Trump, absolutely. But he's also, I think, groveling to the oligarchs that are running the country. The Trump regime, we can call the Trump regime because he happens to be president, but who's really running the country is oligarchs, Elon Musk and his pals, Peter Thiel, and what's the man's name? Curtis Yarvin. I think Curtis Yarvin is like Musk and like Thiel. I think they are both from South Africa,
right,
and pretty well devoted to South Africa's regime of apartheid. There's an actual thing. I was reading about it very recently. It's called the Dark Enlightenment. The Dark Enlightenment. It's on Wikipedia. So it is a theory. It's a theory that's being promoted mostly by billionaires out of Silicon Valley, that essentially the people of the United States are too stupid. We're too stupid to govern ourselves. What we need in terms of governance would be the smart people in the country, and that would, of course, be the proponents of the dark enlightenment theory. These guys who think they're super smart because they're techie and they're super, super rich. So being rich automatically makes you smarter, better than the rest of us. And their idea is that you should just turn the United States into a corporation with CEOs at the top, a very small number of CEOs at the top who will utilize their own brains and AI to run the country in a way that a company would be run. Now, if this doesn't make you think of the Plantation Society of Mississippi circa 1890 or 1820, then you're not paying attention to American history. So what these guys are actually determined to do is have a 10% at the top, a small number of families who have all the power and all the wealth, and the 90% will be kept fighting against each other, as was done in the plantation societies across the Deep South before the Civil War and even after the Civil War under Jim Crow. You keep these other groups of people fighting against each other. Right? Think in the 1700s when the slave masters began very successfully driving wedges between the Irish immigrant workers who came over as lifetime indentured servants, but their children would not be, and African workers who came over as kidnapped, enslaved workers, and their children were destined to also be slaves. These workers began making common cause, working with each other. There's a whole history of it, especially in North Carolina. And it was then that the plantation owners began organizing themselves into narratives that would split the Irish off from the African workers, and it worked remarkably well. I'm sorry to say that my ancestors bought it hook, line, and sinker. We became white, which we had not been. Because under 500 or 800 years of English rule, we were considered very much second-class citizens and really not white, even when we came to this country. But the slave masters made us white, and we bought it. And I'm just saying, so you keep the 90% fighting against each other, and the top 10% can get all the benefits of the work that the bottom 90% will be forced to do. And make no mistake, we'll be forced to do it. I don't know what they have in mind as to how they're going to force it to be done, but definitely right now, the gig economy is from the perspective of the dark enlightenment people. It is an excellent way to keep workers off balance, in precarious situations, unable to organize, unable to form unions. Unable to speak up for themselves. They have no health benefits in the gig economy. They have no retirement savings. They have no control over their schedules. They're forced to work more than 2 jobs to put food on the table, particularly if they have children. So that's, and Greg Abbott is in bed, in my opinion, with these people and kind of thinking. And that is what he's trying to promote. And by the way, once you have a CEO or a cabal of CEOs, running the country, you don't need elections. And I think that Greg Abbott is sort of jumping the gun a little bit there. But I think he believes that Houston doesn't need elections because Houstonians, like 90% of Americans, are just too dumb to be able to choose their own leaders.
Well, he's not a benign figure, Attorney Terry O'Neill and Commissioner Rodney Ellis. I mean, he's a member of the World Economic Forum. I mean, and these people, you've got the Tent Partnership for Refugees that they have co-signed. That is why he has not taken the workers across back to Mexico. He's brought them into the United States and he's distributed them. But we can't even vote about it in Congress. You cannot do that. You have no representation, Commissioner Ellis, and he is preventing you from doing that. And that, to me, is what is so outrageous about this. And it's so dangerous that you have a governor who's sitting on top of a constitutionally sanctioned election. This is what you're supposed to do. But he's gaming the system, if you will. He is like, no, I'm not going to have the election. I'm like, how do you justify that? And I mean, and are there any coalitions? Have coalitions come together to cry out and say, no, we've got to have our election? I mean, is anyone saying anything?
Well, I think that shows like this one, so that your audience is attuned to what's going on. I think by Leader Hakeem Jeffries speaking out, members of the Texas legislature, my county commissioner's court, I'm confident it'll pass, and I'm hoping that the city of Houston does it. I think it's going to lead to discussions in various states about changing the law so that somebody other than the governor can force an election. And we'll have to see what the courts do. I mean, one of the people running for the seat happens to be our Harris County attorney. And if he's looking at grounds to file a lawsuit, and I'm going to be supportive, and I'll be supportive of the county paying for it. And I would do it even if it was a Republican seat, by the way. I think people have a right to have their views heard and to be represented, whether they agree with me or not. And that's the big difference between these right-wing oligarchs that you made reference to, following this theory of dark enlightenment, as opposed to what most rational people believe. People ought to have representation, particularly when they're paying taxes. And you talk about out of Houston, 18th Congressional District also includes downtown. Well, all of the energy companies, it's the energy capital of the world. That's what, so those buildings don't pay taxes, but the people who live in them, who live all around Houston, pay those taxes. But so I just appreciate you having me on and, raise as much cane as you can. I appreciate it. I know I hate it took me a while to get in here because I got another call that I have to do on my birthday.
Well, first of all, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. And I will call my mother and ask her to hand over her art.
Take a picture of that. Tell her that piece is from Ghana. The artist is a Blade Glover. He's in his 90s now, and his gallery is right there in Accra. You remember across from the Labadi Beach Hotel. When I was there, we stayed at the Labadi Beach Hotel for the what was it? It was the anniversary of Ghana's independence, and we were there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and the first time I went to that, I was 7, and it became a movie, Soul to Soul.
Yes.
Where I saw Tina Turner go up and smoke on the stage. It was like, what is going on here? But Roberta Flack was very calm. But Wilson Pickett was not. It was tremendous. But I want to thank you for your work. And we're going to continue this conversation, but it's very unsettling that when you talk about these activist judges and these activist legislators, that you've got a governor who is behaving this way. And it just, to me, it doesn't even seem legal.
When it goes to court, if I were in the governor's mansion, I would think about in discovery, what's going to come out? What conversations under oath? Who have you talked to? Who suggested you just leave these people without representation?
Exactly.
On what legal theory are you operating? This is, look, this can't just be the wild, wild west in public. It is, but at least you got to give a facade of respecting democracy. But look, thank you. Thank you.
Much love to you, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
County Commissioner Rodney Ellis. My love to the family.
Thank you, Terry. Nice to meet you as well.
So nice to meet you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Right. Attorney Terry O'Neill, that is just to me emblematic of where we are in the country right now, that a governor would dig in his heels and refuse to have an election. And I want everyone to really think about that right now, because people are doing things that are just absolutely unprecedented. Now, I mean, there are times for disruptors. Dr. King was a disruptor. Frederick Douglass was a disruptor. John Brown was a disruptor. Susan B. Anthony was a disruptor. Mary McLeod Bethune. Now, look, you need disruptors. Eleanor Roosevelt was a disruptor. She was. You need those. That having been said, you also need people who adhere to the rule of law. And to me, there's just something very, very discomforting about a governor who would choose to exercise his power in this way, Terry O'Neill. And I know that there's more where this comes from.
Mhm.
If he feels he can do this, other governors believe that they can do this too. I mean, so what do you say to that? I mean, particularly in light of these hands-off marches, as more and more Americans appear to be waking up. And I think that's why I've really resisted, not even resisted, I'm not a hardcore partisan. I want that which is right to be done, period.
Mhm.
You know, I want that which is right. And I agree with Commissioner Rodney Ellis that if this were a Republican held seat, a seat that Republicans traditionally get, that statistically it would stand that in all likelihood the Republican would get the seat. Okay. In principle, as Americans, there's some things that we've got to stand for, Terry O'Neill. And you cannot have this governor who is, I mean, that's one less vote with which you can negotiate in the House of Representatives. And I guess, I mean, we can just step back and look at this raised or thin majority. I was asking my brother about these executive orders. I said, this is just, everything is an executive order. He said, because he doesn't have the votes.
Mhm. Mhm.
He said, you know, because there's some points of no return. There's some points where you have to have a negotiation. And so that's interesting to me because I said, okay, well that makes a lot of sense. That, you know, because he's just doing everything. And he said, and then he's going to throw it to the courts and let them decide, let them figure it out.
Mhm.
But I'm just trying to figure out upon what basis, I mean, how this governor looks at his citizens and says, we're not going to have the special election for various and sundry reasons. And so now Leader Jeffries, the man who will eventually become Speaker of the House when the Democrats reclaim the majority, he's saying, I've got to sue you. I'm going to have to file a lawsuit.
Mhm.
Because Attorney O'Neill, this is crazy. It's not crazy. It is such a bold power play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a power play that doesn't empower people. I guess that's what really is unsettling to me, Attorney O'Neill.
Yeah, it's a power play. Exactly. I think actually it's just his way of demonstrating his power. Look, Greg Abbott is the one who worked very, very hard to dehumanize half the population of Texas, by which I mean the women of Texas, who have no bodily autonomy, who are known to be dying. And the women who have died for lack of access to reproductive health care as a direct result of Texas's abortion policies. Have the ones that I have read about, the ones that I know about that have been made public, not a single one of those women was seeking what is often called an elective abortion. These were not unexpected, unwanted pregnancies. Women are terminating those pregnancies. All the women who have died have been carrying wanted pregnancies, but experienced a miscarriage. Why are they experiencing a miscarriage? 1/3 of pregnancies end in miscarriage. It is extremely common, but in Texas, it's a potential crime to experience a miscarriage. And it's definitely a crime to assist a woman for a healthcare provider, a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant. It's a crime for any of those people to assist a woman who is having a miscarriage, unless and until one of two things can happen. First, you can prove beyond doubt that there is no that the fetus is actually dead, right? And that's not a medical thing, that's a legal concept, so that can't be done. The other thing that could happen is that the woman is brought to death's door, and you can prove very convincingly that she is at death's door in order to provide her the assistance she needs. So with miscarriages, the greatest danger is hemorrhage. Whether the hemorrhage and obviously there's hemorrhaging going on, because that's how you know the pregnancy is miscarrying. And then the greatest danger from the hemorrhage, of course, is infection.
But Terry, I've not had a child, but I've always read that the closest a woman comes to death is giving life. And with maternal mortality being at the highest rate in the United States for Black and white women than it is in the developed world.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Black women and white women die having babies in the United States.
Yes.
Now-
At
now-
alarming rates, even
and
before. Yeah.
I mean, having the babies, trying to manage the pregnancy, having a dead body inside of you is not safe for you. Okay. So it's all of that. But I mean, when I look at what he does with the border, I mean, some of these children, people are still looking for their kids, Terry.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we got a lot of kids who are missing, Terry.
Yes.
They've been separated from their families. And look, I'm putting it out there. Folks, people have been trafficking these children. There's a whole lot, and he is over that. Then you have the companies that are making money transporting these people across state lines. I mean,
Yes.
and I see them when I go to the home improvement stores. They're lined up down the block on the fence. They've even had to set up fences at these stores because they become day workers. That is like post-slavery.
Yes. Yes. But
I mean,
remember,
that's the way Americans were living then. So I'm just trying to find out how it is in that environment. See, because you need a voice in Congress to participate in that debate, in that discussion.
well, but this is the whole point. Oligarchs don't need to have that discussion. They don't feel that they need to have. Greg
Well, they
Abbott
think we
does not-
shouldn't be having. Yeah, right.
Right. He doesn't want to have a
Right.
discussion. Yes. No. He's. I've made up my mind. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, let women die because remember, there is a financial benefit to women dying under the Texas regime of reproductive health care.
What do you mean?
You make workers that much more pliant. Again, if you keep a population precarious, right? If you keep them off balance, unable to really plan for the future because they don't know if they get pregnant unexpectedly, then that's that's all types of it's a future that you hadn't planned for, and now your future is precarious. If you make sure that people are both economically precarious and financially precarious, around the country, what is it? A majority of people in this country don't have $400 for an emergency.
At any point in the month, at any point.
Correct. They don't. They would have to borrow it. They would have to. Yeah. They don't actually have in their checking accounts or their savings accounts $400.
Wait. You let us not presume people are banked.
Yes, right. Even if they're yes, right, okay. Right.
Because a lot of people are unbanked.
Unbanked.
Because banks make you jump through hoops to get an account, and then if you want to withdraw X amount of dollars, they have to give you permission.
That's right. And then they charge you monthly. And
that is why I brought up these other affiliations that the governor has, because he is not some benign figure. First of all, this is a state that houses the world's home for oil. Okay, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And it is also a rainbow state. It is also, you have the greatest concentration of African Americans, of Black people, of African Americans in Texas, of any state in the Union. There is a whole lot that goes on in Texas, and there's a lot of power in Texas. And for Texas to be denied a seat at the table, and it is a law. It is the law that you register high school seniors to vote. Right. It's Texas state law. It is the law that you hold a special election, Terry, when a person in the lower house, in the people's house, dies or resigns, or otherwise has to resign, or does resign, whatever. And to deny people a seat, I mean, at this time, when all of these people, when you have this razor-thin margin in the U.S. House of Representatives, I mean, this is such a power play. It's mind-blowing. And what's also mind-blowing, Terry, is that they're not talking about it at all in corporate media.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Terry, it's not even a discussion. I'm like, wait a minute. You all are looking for all kinds of things, but you won't discuss people who are being denied a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. You're denying, what has he said? Each seat covers about 900,000 people. You're denying about 1 million people a voice.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that to me is like, wait a minute. And they're still voting, Terry. Now, mind you, this is Easter break, but they're going to go back and they're going to vote on all kinds of bills. But the Democrats are short a vote.
Well, that, and, one of the a very important thing that a member of Congress does is services.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay.
So, for
That's right.
example, the destruction of Social Security is going to have very disproportionate impacts on people with disabilities and people older, say, than 75 years old. On average, and not to be ageist, I'm 72.
Thank God.
But yeah, a lot of people, a lot of older people simply don't do internet. They don't have broadband, or they don't use broadband. And for Social Security, they've been able to get on the phone and get someone to help them. That is pretty much over. And even those who are able to use the internet, the Social Security system keeps crashing. So what happens?
Well, wait a minute, Terry. Let's presume you need to have some money. You need to have enough money to purchase the internet and keep it going from month to month.
I know, and it costs money. It's like it's almost $100 a month.
It costs money, and a lot of people don't have that.
Exactly. And they're the ones who really rely on Social Security if they don't have the $100 a month for the broadband. So here's the thing that happens. First of all, the rules for people who receive Social Security disability insurance payments, which is very small, and the amount you get is very small, but you have to go visit the Social Security office from time to time, having to do with sort of, are you still disabled? And I don't know the rules about it, but I know that you have to have ongoing contact with the Social Security Administration. That's been made very difficult. Also, suppose that you're not disabled, you're on Social Security, your spouse is on Social Security, and very sadly, your spouse dies. Now you have to go to the Social Security Administration and do the paperwork to reassess your Social Security benefit. It changes when your spouse dies, right? So if that isn't happening, what is the one thing you can do? You can call your member of Congress. If you're having a problem, that is the kind of direct services that they offer. Your member of Congress, if you're trying to get a passport and you've hit a wall, you've hit some kind of thing, your member of Congress can help you with that. There's a lot of direct services that members of Congress do. And Greg Abbott is making sure that those 900,000 people who live in Houston who may need those kinds of services are not getting those direct services. And this is Greg Abbott telegraphing to people he thinks are beneath him, you all don't count. You don't matter to me. I can use my power to shut you up because I don't think that you matter as much as other people matter. That's his message to them. That's what he's saying. And it's an important message because that is actually the message of the Dark Enlightenment. It's the message of Donald Trump. It's the message of J.D. Vance and Elon Musk. That is exactly what they're saying, is there are people who don't look and think like us. They don't matter.
Well, it's the transhumanism. It is, there's too much empathy. And, I'm like, whoa, because this is what Elon Musk said. Even though he does admit, I don't have the empathy chip. I actually feel sad for him because he says things, when you hear about his background, I'm like, he's a broken guy. I know he's very wealthy, but there's something that's not right. And it breaks my heart. I mean, I was watching someone who would be characterized as a Black conservative on television this morning. And basically the interviewer, who was white, and it's important because they were trying to figure out, he was, you can see he was a bit of a cultural curiosity, although Black people are socially conservative, so he really should not have been. But he said, basically, why do you think the way that you do? And one of the first things that he said was, well, I grew up in white neighborhoods. And when I was around Black people, they would tease me because they felt that I was not Black enough. I said, this is just to kind of bring what he said together. And I said, so they found someone who did not fit socially, which is what they always do. When you hear Clarence Thomas's story, it's the same story.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much anger underneath all of this. But when you hear all of these people who have these draconian outlooks on life, I mean, who press down on people, they have these backgrounds. I don't care if they're Black, white, brown, yellow, or red.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you were not loved. Is that it? Okay. You got a love deficit in your life. And
Yeah.
it's just, and we're all paying for it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
And so I'm looking at this guy, and this is someone who is in a wheelchair. He is physically incapacitated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do expect more from him because he doesn't see life from the top down. He sees it looking up. But not for the grace of God and political power, he would have to man that wheelchair himself.
Mm-hmm.
He would not have assistance. He would not have help. He wouldn't have the security in knowing that he could get the best health care. And so for him to treat the world the way that he does, to me, is profoundly disappointing. And I look at him as someone who's deeply wounded, but he's bleeding all over everybody.
Right. Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. That's that last point, Santita, that I think is so important. You have to, I have to say, I'm not on social media very much anymore. I'm really trying to move off of social media because I do think it's a kind of very unhealthy place to be. But every now and then I see critiques of Greg Abbott that to me border on trashing him because he's in a wheelchair. Right.
I don't agree with that.
It's like an ad hominem attack. It's so hard not to be ad hominem when people are doing so much damage. It's hard, and I get that, but I disapprove.
No. First of all, look, you do not counter cruelty with cruelty.
With cruelty, yes, yes.
You don't do that. Now, I'm not mean. And look, and I can say I think Jasmine Crockett is a stellar public servant. And I'm very excited about her future. I do want her to just be a little careful because you also have the crowd behind her pushing her on and this, we want you to fight. I'm like, no, you really need to, what you need to do, you need to fight, but you fight fair and you don't fight cruelty with cruelty. Right. I'm from the school where, you have to have strength, as Dr. King wrote, to love.
Yes.
That's the more powerful position. That's one thing that I have learned from my father. I was reading an article about him not too long ago, Terry, and this journalist said, I've said some pretty rough things about him down through the years. He said, but what's interesting to me? He said, the man doesn't know how to carry a grudge.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do that. And I've asked my father about that down through the years. He says, you forgive people, they don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
He said you cannot be big and little at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
Said now either
mm-hmm.
you are going to love people and take all that they are, or you're not going to do it. And Robert, I hear you. I have much love and respect for Jasmine Crockett. I just want her to be careful because people can talk you into all kinds of things. And Terry, you've been in leadership now for decades. And you always have to watch the crowd because cheers turn to jeers, Robert, on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
People can cheer you on and tell you, that's right, you just need to keep on going. No, you don't need to do that. Because people play with you. And what you want to do, you want to model the kind of leadership that you demand of others.
Right. And actually, I had forgotten about Jasmine Crockett. She did say something, but I'm talking about just ordinary people on.
But I'm saying all of that because it's everywhere. Yeah. It's in the atmosphere.
It is.
I mean, I'm not diminishing her because I like her a lot personally and politically. I love her fight. I just know that if you want to last in this fight, there's a way that you got to do it.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, and because she is, I think she is. She, at least I hope she is on a leadership track in
Yeah.
Congress. The higher you get in leadership, the more careful you have to be.
Because,
No-
because
yeah,
I don't want people to talk her out of that.
right. Yeah.
And Robert, that's what I'm saying. They will when people care about you. There came a point in my father's public life when he was very young, when he made he was on CBS or NBC, ABC News, one of these big news shows in the days when everybody watched CBS, NBC, or ABC at 5:30 or East Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Okay, when everybody watched the same three broadcasts, and it was Walter Cronkite. It might have been him. Might have been he who told Reverend, now never get on another national show, Reverend, without a shirt, without a suit and tie.
Oh.
Because he was wearing a dashiki, medallion, afro, which he was going to keep. He said,
Yes.
but for the purposes of where I see you going, I'm not asking you to change your message,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but your presentation, that you will get some people along the way who will tell you things that can be helpful. And Lisa, I hear you. What you say? You disagree about her being a leader? She's not a leader yet, Lisa. I said I think she's on the leadership track. Just because people are put on television and are elevated doesn't make them leaders yet. And I want to give her the space to grow. And I'm old school too. She said I find her rhetoric extremely off-putting. I'm old school, me too, but she's young, and this is her first turn at the rodeo. And so what I want to do is give her the space to grow. And Lisa, that's what I'm going to do. People have given me grace and space, and I want to give it to her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all. Because it gets very exciting when these lights can come on you. You can get very excited, and you could lose your mind. And you can say some things, do some things that don't serve you well. And so it's just, I just try to give people space because everybody makes mistakes and everybody does something that in hindsight they wish they hadn't done.
And
You know,
and I have to say, her style is she's a fighter.
she's a
She's a
fighter.
pugilist. She get and to
She's a
be clear,
she's a former prosecutor, right?
I think so. She's
Yeah.
super smart. I know that, and a lawyer. But the thing, I think a lot of what something that is not obvious if you're watching C-SPAN for sure, which I do sometimes, it's not at all obvious the kinds of vicious racist attacks that members of Congress will lodge at one another. Now that was not always the case, but it is increasing
Today.
Yeah,
As you say, today,
yeah,
bets are off. These folks, and they say anything to each other
yeah,
on the floor, off the floor.
off the floor, passing you in the hall, and use language that are not okay. The member of Congress who's a transgender woman, who has experienced such extraordinary bullying, both off and on the floor. Now she's taking a different tack to it. She's responding her way. I don't actually fault Jasmine Crockett for responding to it her way because she's a fighter, and because she is going to respond in a very strong way. That sometimes you get close to the line when you do that. You really do.
See, I need Shirley Chisholm, see Dolores Tucker, and many other women.
Yes.
There's some other examples that I want her to follow. Now,
Yeah.
already. Stop.
Yeah.
That is not how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a lady, first, last, and always. And so do it that way, and you will always win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to model men for strength.
Right. Well, there's that.
My model is not, no, I'm a woman. And God trusted me so much, he gave me the power to bear life. And he created nothing after me. I'm the last thing God created. And I'm all right. I'm perfect. Lacking in nothing. Everybody needs a woman, a good one. So now let's be the best that we can be. And that means You can't be big and little at the same time. Sometimes people say things to you and you just have to absorb it. And they will feel bad about the things that they said to you, Terry, because they know they were out of order. And if they don't, God help them. I can't be held accountable for all of that. But there's a way to do this.
Mhm.
And so that we don't have a civil war breaking out on the floor.
With fisticuffs. Yeah.
Oh my, because look, these folks, the way they're getting down in these hearings, I'm like, do I need to? I said to my brother, I said, do I need to bring up some popcorn? Is that going to be my entertainment? I said, maybe I need to just go on and get my clothes together like I'm going to a fight. Oh, and what you say, Lisa? You said she is super smart. She can conduct herself with more self-control. A fighter doesn't have to use vulgar language, and none of them have to.
Mhm.
And I want to hold everybody to that standard. Everybody. And I've not heard her use vulgar language. I've just heard her be a little sharp. But I've heard, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is sharp. All these folks, these sisters are they're real ones, and God bless them. But just let's model something else. Because everybody is taking their cues from everybody. I've got the last 2 minutes. They belong to you, Attorney Terry O'Neill.
I was going to say, I don't really have any respect at all for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she punches down as often as she can. And not to, I mean, I do agree with everything you said. I really do. But it's different. But there is a difference between punching back and punching down.
That's
and
true.
So that, and I just want to say about Elon Musk. It's very interesting because yes, he is a man with a disability. He's a person with a disability. He has a condition which I think is called sociopathy. He's a sociopath in the sense that he has no empathy. So that is a mental condition. It's a mental health condition, and I don't think.
And he is copped to it.
Yes, although
I didn't say he's doing anything about it.
He uses it to his own benefit, and I think that's shameful. A lot of sociopaths do not do that. And look, so people people who are sociopaths, just like people who are not sociopaths, some of them, have these certain types of talents, and some have very few talents. The vast majority of sociopaths, however, precisely because they have no capacity for empathy, they end up poorer than most people, unable to maintain friendships, unable to maintain relationships. They tend to die younger. They tend to be angry as they age. So these are not the kind of people that you would gratuitously, punch for the fact that they are literally born without the whatever it is that creates empathy. The vast majority of human beings are, of course, highly empathic. It's why we've been so successful as a species, because we're very social. And to be social is to be empathic, to read other people, to understand other people's, feelings and so forth. So on the one hand, I want to recognize that he has a disability. And I feel very strongly that people with disabilities, you can't punch, you should not be punching them and punching down. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you should be running the world. If you have a disability that results in enormous damage being done to other people, then you should not be in a position to do that kind of damage.
But Terry, that means we need to do a change out on the oligarchy, because they all suffer from that.
Exactly. This is the thing. I look, the question is, who should be running this country? Well, the answer is we all should.
Now, there's that part.
That's what the oligarchs don't understand, is that we all need to have a voice in running this country. So it's yes, that's why I think Elon Musk should not be in control. Greg Abbott, I don't think, is a legitimate leader, because he does not believe that other people should have a voice, and that, I think, makes you unqualified to be a leader in a democracy.
And if people start voting, they can change that. TC, watch your language. And now I hear you, TC, but we don't use that kind of language here. And Trump may have changed the game, but if you fight fire with fire, everybody's going to get burned. Somebody's got to get the water buckets and put the fire out. Enough.
Yes.
Enough. I mean, I understand disruptors have their place. I get it. That having been said, I believe in love. That's the commandment. It's not a suggestion. That's God's commandment. And we need to be kind to people. We need to be kind.
Yeah.
And we need to be empathetic. And you know what? If you keep on living everything you've said to someone, thought about someone, everything you've done to someone, you're going to feel it because you are someone too. Everybody watch it.
Right. Yeah.
Watch it. Because Musk and Trump are not the only narcissists. A whole lot of people are. Enough. And we all have our narcissistic moments. First thing we need to do is clean out our own hearts. How about that part?
Right.
We keep pointing at all these other people. Well, the thumb is pointing right back at you. So let's cooler heads can prevail. The last minute belongs to you. We're going to be talking about this North Carolina court case in the next hour.
Well, yeah. I mean, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I think if we have to look at the actions of our leaders, and if the actions are harmful, then either the leaders need to stop being leaders or change their actions, change their policies. That's the most important thing. And I do too. I'm like, who does this? My response to Greg Abbott's just shutting down an entire election just because he wants to. I'm like, I want to find out who this guy is and what made him such a monster. And then I have to stop myself and say, no, let's focus on what he is doing and critique what he is doing, not what he is or who he is.
Well, it's the same old playbook. And when you see these people, I get it. I just know that we have got to be the change that we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
And we need to be kind.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you can't get hot and get somebody straight, because I do it. I get it. But, I also come back and say, you know what? If I hurt you, please forgive me. That was not my intention. And we just got to do better. We have got to not just do better. We got to get right.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. I love you, Terry O'Neill.
Right.
North Carolina is about to throw out 65,000 votes. What we saw in Wisconsin, where you saw the people have their say. The people have their say. And you have a Supreme Court justice who, let's just say she's more fair. She tilts what some people would say left. The same thing happened in North Carolina, but they're about to throw out 65,000 votes and turn that election around. What do you think about that?
Yeah, seriously. Thank you so much. Right.
Much love to you. Everybody, second hour with Santita Jackson show coming up in just a moment here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.